Hello everyone and welcome back to Drama Made Simple. On this channel we do all things acting from home, acting exercises you can do alone and all stuff like that. So if you want to see more of those videos, I recommend that you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when new videos are uploaded. Today we're going to be talking about what Stanislavski said about characterization. If you don't know who Stanislavski is, he's a Russian actor who developed method acting around the 1900s. So previous videos about Stanislavski have been more focused on the mental skill that he believes you should work on as an actor. So if you want to see those previous videos, I'll have the playlist linked down below. So those videos are more focused on the book An Actor Prepares, which is all about the mental skill and includes things like relaxation, concentration, improvisation and imagination, the use of character objectives, emotion memory and other stuff like that. So again, I'll have that linked down below. This video and the next couple videos are going to be more focused on Stanislavski's second book, which is Building a Character. And this is more about the physical skill that an actor needs to work on according to Stanislavski. So that's using the body and voice as an apparatus to create a character on stage. So one of the first things that you can know is that you can achieve external characterizations just from a few little tricks, such as changing your facial expression, changing any gestures or postures, changing how you walk, how your voice is, and those can be done through just simple mechanical changes rather than ones that would really be to do with a character. And Stanislavski says that we as people will develop our characterizations from our own selves, from other people that we see, from real life and imaginary life, from intuition and from observing ourselves and other people. We draw from life experience, from friends, from books and other experiences. So actors too can learn to develop different characterizations by observing other people, by reading books, and learning different characterizations such as gestures, postures, facial expressions, costume ideas, makeup, and all these kinds of things can all add to a character's external characterization. So one of the first things that you can do is to study different people, so people with very distinct personalities. So study all of the things that I've mentioned, how people dress, how they walk, how they talk, how they respond to other people, how other people respond to them, how they use gestures, how their posture is, their facial expressions, and all of those things. So that's the first exercise I recommend you do, is to pick a particular person, maybe a celebrity, and write down as much as you can about all of those things by studying some interviews with them or something like that. Or you could pick someone that you know, that's also a good thing to do. And then after you've put together a good profile of their external characterization, you should try and improvise as them. Using like how they walk, how they talk, and all the things that you have tracked already. And it's a very helpful exercise to do things like that. So I recommend that you should keep a diary, and anytime you observe people with certain characterizations that you find interesting or that represent something about them specifically, you would write them down, and then you'd have them for future character work or for improvisations or something like that, because it can be very useful to have different ideas of characterizations that you can use, and observing people is a great way to get them. So one of the biggest messages Stanislavski says in this book is to love the role in yourself and not yourself in the role. And what he means by that is that you acting a character on stage is not an opportunity for you to show off. It's a time for you to be able to show the character as best as possible, and that you can find ways to connect yourself to the character and not connect the character to yourself in a sense. So he says that there are some actors who don't like being true to a character's external form because either they have a great beauty or like physically are very attractive and they don't want to change their physical appearance in order to make it less, or they have a really great personality and they don't want to show the character's full personality because they believe that it lessens their own exemplary personality. So that one form of actor who doesn't like to show a full character's external characterization is because they believe they can win the audience over with their looks or their charms. And then he says that there are other actors who will hide completely in the character because they believe that they lack the outer or inner attraction that other actors have. But then when they hide themselves too much in the character, they end up overacting or giving into cliches. It's very possible to think of many cliches that actors might use. So if you're playing a soldier, that you would march up and down and be very stern and accidentally every time you speak to someone say sir, yes sir, and all of these things. That would be a very cliched way to do it if that's all that you do. And if you're more observant, you will be able to make further subdivisions so that you would know the difference between how a soldier would act versus like a commandant or something like that. But still, they'll be still somewhat cliched because they're not very individualized to the actual person that you're trying to show when you're being the character that is the soldier. So Stanislavski said that you should really live inside the image of the character, to use your own emotions, your own instinct, and your own sensations while you're living inside of the character. And he says that a characterization is a mask which hides the actor as an individual. So the next thing that Stanislavski says you should do is to try and understand why someone's physical characterization is the way that it is. And the example that he describes in building a character is of trying to act as an old person. So you can try it yourself just intuitively if you want to pause the video and spend a couple minutes just acting as if you were an old person and doing this in just whatever way makes the most sense to you, because it'd be helpful for you to do this first so that you have an understanding of what you might be doing right or wrong. So I'd say take a couple seconds, pause the video, and just act yourself as an older person. Try to go from sitting to standing, walking over to make a cup of tea, something like that. And then once you've done that, his issue with the way that his students were doing this was that it was more just external imitation. And one thing he says is that copies are not created works. So when you copy someone or just something without understanding how or why something is the way that it is, you're not going to be able to create something really exciting or interesting on stage. So he says that you should study the nature of old age. Why is it that a young person can jump up, turn around, and do loads of things straight away when it takes an old person so much longer? So salts build up in your joints that cause your muscles to harden. As time passes, your joints aren't as lubricated as they once were. So that means that the actual rubbing together of bones is a lot more prominent and a lot more possibly painful. So that's something to be aware of, that when you're moving, it should feel like your stuff like your hip bones and things like that are actually grinding together. So that's why you need to take more time to do certain activities, is because I think grinding is the best way to understand it, that it's because there isn't that synovial fluid as much in your joints anymore. When you move, it really aches because of the grinding of the bones. Because of this, older people don't tend to make as broad gestures, because doing something like that requires a lot of range of motion, which they might have lost because of the aging joints and things like that. And it means that doing large motions needs to be broken up into smaller steps that can be taken. So when you're moving through going from sitting to standing up, you should try and think of each of the motions that are required in order to do that, and try and do those as more separate small steps that an older person might need to take. So Stanislavski says that when you define limitations associated with an older person's physical condition, and you add these with the concentration of attention, which I've talked about before, and focusing on the task at hand, as well as using imagination and the magic if, which again I've talked about before, as well as the given circumstances of the scene or what needs to occur, which I've discussed as well. So I'll just have all those videos linked so that you know which ones I'm talking about. When you add in all of these, it goes from not just play acting and mimicking someone into actually understanding how the character is moving and act. So by an actor putting themselves into the confines of the character, the play, the given circumstances surrounding the older person that they're playing, then the actor is able to understand the analogous circumstances which lead to true external characterizations, the rhythm and the pace that an older person might use, which will ultimately lead them to be able to portray the part better on stage. And as well, in terms of making things individual, it doesn't mean that all older people will have difficulty moving. There are plenty of youthful older people that move around freely, so it just depends on the type of character you're playing. And usually the given circumstances, which you mentioned is so important because what kind of life they have led, what kind of activity they've had throughout their life will determine what kind of movement they're able to have when they're older. So someone who might have damaged their body a lot through their past might have even more difficulty moving around when they're older, or someone who spent all of their life being active would have much less difficulty moving around. So taking into account the specific characters given circumstances is what would make the performance more individual, whereas if you just learn to understand how aging occurs, then your portrayal of any older person would just be the same each time, which is not very interesting and not very true to a given character. And what he mentioned about concentration of attention is that you need to definitely be aware of your character's conditions, whether that's any form of movement or external features that they have, to be aware of them the whole time and to not lose sight of them, because it definitely breaks the magic on stage when you see someone lose their physical form as their character. So concentration of attention is extremely important for staying in the physical external characterization of a character, and always imagining yourself in the circumstances and imagining how you would move if you had such an external issue or feature would always make the performance more real, because you're really thinking about how it would feel and how you would move in those circumstances. So now it is your turn for the big exercise of this video. What I would like you to do is to create from concept to execution completely a character. And this person can be anyone in any time, any place, anything like that. Completely up to you. What you have to do is prepare the external characterization of a person and completely mask yourself in that. So using a costume, any makeup, what gestures, posture, and vocal aspects that you believe the character would have. So understanding who they are and what their life is like and what their situation is like, what's going on for them, will all lead up to you being able to determine what kind of characterizations you give that person. So spend a couple of days doing this, like not obviously the whole day, but a little bit every day, deciding each aspect of the character and trying to figure out who they are. And then in a couple of days I will have a questionnaire led for you so that you can act as the character, and it's sort of like hot seating. So if you've done drama before, you might know what that is. If not, it's basically where you're in the hot seat and I'll be asking you questions where you have to answer as the character. So really think about who they are and what they're about and why your characterization of them, the physical things you've decided, why that all makes sense for them. And I will have the questions up for you so that you can have each question one at a time, perform the answer as your character, and then move on to the next one. And then I definitely recommend that you write a reflection of how that went for you and the things that you learned or the things that you found helped or didn't help and stuff like that, because I do think it's a very valuable exercise to do. It's something that we'd ask the children in drama to do a lot, because not necessarily with the costume and everything, but coming up with a character and really trying to portray them fully, and they'd be asked questions or they'd have to give like a statement or something like that. So I do think it's a very useful exercise to do. And don't worry about it too much. I think people can get in their head a lot and find it kind of difficult if they work too hard. So just do whatever comes to mind and whatever feels right for you. Don't worry about it. It's not like if you don't feel like you do a good job in this exercise, it's not the end of the world. It's just a fun thing to do and a good thing to get you started in acting. Stanislavski had this in his book Building a Character, and the main character that was created was the critic, which is the critic inside his head that tells him all the things that are wrong with what he's doing as an actor. If you've ever watched Jane the Virgin, at one point she goes to an acting class to help her with her writing, like an improvisation class, and one of the things she has to do is create a character the same as this, and she does the critic, and it's a really funny episode. So I hope you liked this video. I hope it was helpful. I look forward to hearing about the different characters you came up with in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And if you want to see more videos, there will be more on this line, down more about characterization and physical and vocal things in the next couple of videos. And after that, some more stuff on Stanislavski as well. So Do subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more of those, and I will see you in the next video.